Welcome and good morning, everyone. Um, we'll, we have we still have a lot of people trickling in, but in the interest of time, we'll make sure we can get started. Um, just as a friendly reminder, we will be recording this session because I'm sure there will be a lot more interest for people to listen in this afterwards. So we'll have a recording available. Um, Again, as you may have seen in the flyer, this is a joint training given by Caltrans and industry members on the new EPD specification for asphalt and concrete. Pavement Materials and Partnering Committee, known as PMPC, last year took a prioritized scoping document to develop the Caltrans specification for collecting EPDs for concrete and asphalt. 8 members from Caltrans and industry worked together tirelessly and published a specification in an unprecedented amount of time. And we are fortunate today to have 4 of those 8 members give us an overview on what those new requirements are and how all suppliers and projects can meet those requirements. We are anticipating a large audience today, so please make sure you are on mute unless you're speaking. Goal for this training is to be as interactive as possible. So please put your question in the chat. At the end, we'll go through and answer as many questions from the chat as possible. If we can't get to all the questions, we'll make sure to provide a written response as part of FAQs afterwards to all the attendees. With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panel here, starting out with Dominica. Dominica Arcoloni is a branch chief of statewide material support branch with Materials Engineering Services and Testing Services, MATS. She has been pioneer in successfully implementing first buy clean legislation in the nation. She was single point of contact for Caltrans implementing the requirements working with Air Resource Board in California. With strong background and understanding of EPDs, she was instrumental in securing maximum funds for California in FHWA Climate Challenge. Next, we have Hadi Nabizadeh. Hadi is the Senior Transportation Engineer in Office of Asphalt Pavement Program. He has been working very closely with the PMPC and is involved in various efforts such as BMD, EPD, and Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, EV, super heavy vehicles, and more. Hadi has been an active member of the Transportation Research Board, TRB committees, FHWA technical groups, and NCHRP panel, and AMAP subcommittee. Next, we have Mike Kocunik. Mike is the Perkins Quality Assurance and Lab Supervisor for Teichert. Mike has a background as an aggregate and asphalt technician for 17 years and has supervised rock plants, asphalt plants, and mineral labs, all in Sacramento for the last 11 years. Mike's hands-on experience with asphalt plants and EPD was instrumental in making sure that correct thresholds were selected in the specification with this active industry participation. Ignacio Valdivia. Ignacio serves as a sustainability manager at Holliday Rock, where he leads the initiatives focused on reducing environmental impacts within the concrete and construction materials industry. Ignacio worked closely with the entire concrete industry and brought back valuable feedback and helped shape the specification as well as make EPD tool user-friendly. With that, I'll jump into the agenda here and briefly go over who is going to cover what. So Dominica will start with what the EPDs are and why Caltrans wants them. Then we'll hear from both industry members, Mike and Ignacio, about how to develop an EPD. Then Hadi will walk us through the new specification and discuss some of the FAQs. And then at the end, we'll have industry member again, Mike and Ignacio, give us a live walkthrough of EPD database usage. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So with that, we'll go ahead and have Dominica take us into the first section of the agenda.
Good morning, Janesh. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. As Janesh mentioned, my portion of today's webinar is going to be focused on giving a little bit of background onto what environmental product declarations are and Caltrans' interest in collecting them. So we'll start with what is an EPD, and essentially it's a report that has various environmental impacts that are involved in making a product. Those environmental impacts are calculated using something called product category rules. So different products have different ways of calculating their emissions, and each of those product category rules are developed by a program operator. And so I just wanted to get some of that terminology out there because you're going to hear it throughout this presentation. And so just like with, say, a nutrition label on some food, you have all these different nutrition facts, such as your calories or your sugar content or your fiber, whatever you're interested in. EPDs have the same thing, except we're talking about environmental impacts. And what we're specifically interested in is global warming potential. This is what Caltrans is actually collecting from the EPDs. Next slide, please. So it's important to understand that what phase of a product's life cycle we're talking about. So on the bottom here on the slide, we have our whole life cycle, our product stage, construction stage, usage stage, and so on. For EPDs, we're just talking about the cradle to gate or product stage of a product's life cycle. And so as part of that product stage, we have A1, A2, and A3. And you'll hear that those modules or terminology later on as well when we're talking about kind of showing you how we put the data into our database. And so what A1 signifies is the raw material supply. So when we're extracting those raw materials, any emissions that are related to that processing and getting those raw materials. And then we have our A2, which represents our transportation of taking those raw materials to the manufacturing and any emissions that are related to that transportation. And then we have the actual manufacturing process of those products and any emissions that are related to that. Um, and next slide, please. So I also wanted to talk briefly. Janesh mentioned the Buy Clean California Act. There's some similarities and there's certainly a lot of differences in what our current effort was in regards to concrete and asphalt. So the Buy Clean California Act, this was approved in 2017, and what this legislation requires is that the department, Caltrans, collects EPD data for structural steel, carbon steel rebar, flat glass, and mineral wool board insulation. And so the way that we implemented this was in a phased approach where first we just wanted to see what EPDs were out there. That was phase one. Phase two, we started to require EPDs, but there was a potential option for a withhold if we weren't able to get that EPD. And now we're in full board phase three, where we have limits that were set for us by the Department of General Services. So those EPDs need to meet certain thresholds. Also, we are not allowed to install that material unless we get the EPD that meets all the requirements of the legislation. So it's a little bit, it's like the next level to what we've done with the asphalt and concrete. So there's definitely a difference between the two efforts, but we thought it was important to kind of share that there's this other thing. Next slide, please. So why is Caltrans interested in collecting EPDs? It's part of our goals for climate action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, as well as be a recognized leader on climate action. And so within our 2024 to 2028 strategic plan, a couple of those strategies are to promote low carbon emission practices in project development and construction, as well as proactively collaborate with external partners to lead climate action. And so environmental product declarations are a way of us to better understand what kind of environmental impact we have through the materials that we're using. Next slide, please. So that brings us to our current effort. So the Pavement Materials Partnering Committee Executive Committee put together a working group. This is a joint venture between the Asphalt Task Group and the Concrete Task Group, and they put together a group of professionals from the Caltrans side as well as the industry side, as Janesh had mentioned. And so you'll recognize 4 of those members are here today to speak with you. Next slide, please. So as a group, we took various items into consideration when we were developing these specifications. One of those was the threshold quantities. And so this is actually similar to what we did with the Bike Lane California Act. Not every product not every project requires an EPD. So those smaller projects, we are allowing them to not submit EPDs. But we also looked at the material quantities. We wanted to get as much information as we could. We were aiming for 90% of the materials. We wanted EPD data for that. But we didn't want the cost of developing an EPD to exceed 4% of the cost of the material itself. So it was kind of a balancing act, and we used data from previous projects as well as our industry partners to kind of balance that out. We also had the implementation timeline. So some industry members were getting feedback that they were ready to go. They had their EPDs in hand and were ready for this specification to go in yesterday. Other industry partners shared with us that they need a little bit more time. And so we kind of tried to meet them in the middle, and that's how we ended up with our current specification. And then we had our database improvements. So with the Bike Lane California Act, we collected all the data through DIME, and we realized that it was kind of cumbersome. DIME wasn't developed to collect this kind of data. We just had it, and so that's what we used at the time. But with this effort, we developed a new EPD database, and we really focused on the user experience, trying to make it as simple as possible. Next slide. And so that is how we got to today, our 2025 update. We developed section 6-1.08, and this section has EPD requirements for hot mix asphalt and concrete. And this specification has gone live as of February 1st of 2025. And so we have this picture of our contractor's corner. You can go there to get information, but we're also planning on sending out a flyer at the end of this webinar to all the participants here today, which will have a list of helpful links that will hopefully help everybody in case they forget what we talk about today. Next slide. So these are our next steps. So we got to the point where we actually have incorporated the specification and developed it, but we need to take a look and see, are there lessons learned from this process? Are there updates that we need to make to our specifications as we learn from it over the course of this construction season? We're going to be collecting data over the next few months and looking at what kind of data we're getting. We also have a requirement to develop a final report for our working group, and in that final report we'll talk about some recommendations for next steps. Some of those being how do we address data gaps, what kind of data gaps are there, and what can we do to support filling those data gaps, as well as benchmarking and looking at what kind of data we have. So those are all future steps for a future EPD working group. Next slide. All right, so I provided a little bit of background. Now I'm going to hand it over to Mike and Ignacio, who are going to go over how to develop an EPD.
Hello, everyone. Next slide, please. So I want this to sink in a little bit. We've got 2 web addresses here. Developing an EPD shouldn't be too difficult if you haven't already. We won't be going through a step-by-step guide, as the web tool itself will be able to do that when you try your first EPD. But this will be just a basic understanding of creating an EPD. First, you must create a Napa user account on their website, which is the first address you see here, asphaltpavement.org, and then navigate to asphaltepd.org or search Napa EPD tool in the search bar and get to Emerald Ecolabel EPD tool and sign in with that Napa account. We won't go through all the steps because there's plenty of help buttons and tutorials on the Napa site to get you your asphalt EPD. Next slide, please. So once you're logged in, there's basically 4 steps. You've got organizational information, plant data, suppliers and ingredients, and mix information. Organizational information is really easy: name, address, contact person. Plant data, name, address, once again, energy type and usage, the fuel type, waste, annual production, etc. The suppliers and ingredients part, basically mix design information, your ID number, the type, the design method that you used, PG grade, the size, everything that would be on your mix design. The idea behind this is that all this information is to know how efficient your plant is, what materials and what percentage you're using them in the specific design, and then the distance and how you got those materials to your plant in order to assess the total environmental impact of making that mix from that plant. The tool has a lot of drop-down menus. Once you add in all your ingredients and suppliers you're going to be using, to make it really easy for you to go ahead and click those and develop that EPD. And when you're done, next slide, please. So here's what's at the top of the front page of the EPD. You're going to have a plant name, location, mix name, the specification entity used to make that mix design, gradation type, design method, ag size, binder grade. The bottom of this page does also contain some important information. We'll be talking about that later when we get to the state's database. Next slide, please. So the other page of major importance on the EPD is the third page, which shows the global warming potential of the mix being made from that specific plant. Most people might mention this as the EPD number, but technically it's the global warming potential. And that's that first number, 53.09. It's listed in metric and English. Everything that we're going to be doing is in the metric, so 53.09. Next slide. So challenges to developing an EPD. Personally, I think the plant data is probably the most challenging because many asphalt plants in a yard may not be or may be sharing energy from other parts of that plant facility and not metered separately. So it may take some time to accurately determine how much of the electricity or power or fuel that you're using is being used for that plant and not anywhere else on that yard. Documentation may be needed. It's also important to make sure all your data is converted into the units that's required. Anything that you put in that looks way out of whack, the tool will stop you and ask you to re-input some material. It's going to stop you from going any further. But other than that, most of the other data that is necessary is just names, addresses, and simple mix design data. Next slide. So developing EPDs can be beneficial to the supplier, can be a way to facilitate operational improvements now that you have an accounting of your asphalt plant energy usage. You can't fix what you don't know, so being able to know exactly what's going into producing these mixes may prompt you to make a cleaner mix. As far as the operational side, you can use less aggregate moisture, a cleaner fuel, drier wrap. Less moisture is always better. Less hauling distances, or you can use products that help you lower your temperature. And as far as the mix design is concerned, obviously you can use more wrap. That'll lower the GWP number. Use closer material sources, uses of additives like warm mix to get that temperature down. Use of drier aggregates like we mentioned before, and reduce use of rejuvenators in order to get you to potentially be able to use more wrap. Any improvements that you make to the plant can be used to lower the CO2 output of any mix coming from that plant, but must be part of a consecutive 12-month period of data collection that's needed. However, changes in the mix design that offer a reduction in the CO2 can be implemented immediately by simply inputting another mix with another mix ID with those changes, or you can save over that particular mix ID with your new changes, and within minutes you'll be able to use that EPD into the system. So now we're going to get into how to develop concrete EPDs with Ignacio.
Thanks, Mike. And good morning, everybody. So I'll be talking to you about how to develop a concrete EPD. Again, this is going to be a high-level process, as once you do start developing an EPD, you'll have plenty of resources at your disposal to help develop one. So your first step is to define your goal and scope. So make sure you understand what units of measurements you're dealing with and your system boundary. For Caltrans, their system boundary that they're looking for their EPDs is a cradle to gate system. Again, cradle is where material is being extracted, and gate, for our reference, is your concrete plant where the material is being mixed. Next, you will choose your EPD developer, or also referred to as an LCA, life cycle assessment company. For concrete, we have two options. We have WAPA and Climate Earth. And on the asphalt side, we have the Emerald Eco label. And they will walk you through your PCR that applies for you. The next step is to collect your primary data. So we'll start off with plant operations. This is collecting your fuel and electricity consumption. Then we collect transportation. This is the hauling distance for your raw materials. And then we move on to collecting all your suppliers. This is could be cement, binder, SCM, aggregates, to name a few. Once you have collected that information, your EPD developer will send your information to be third-party verified. Once the information is verified, then you're able to publish. For our company, we use NRMCA as our publishing company for concrete, and the Emerald Eco label for asphalt. We also have access to EC3, and the newest database, and why we're here today, is our Caltrans database. So this is an example of the first page of our EPD. The EPD consists of 5 pages, but the first page consists of the majority of the information that you'll be plugging into the database, which we'll walk through in the next couple sections. Next, I'll pass it on to Hadi to do a walk through the new specs and FAQ.
All right. Thank you, Ignacio. Good morning, everyone. This is the third section of presentation. Next slide, please. And in this section, I'm going to walk you through the new spec. We developed section 6-1.08, environmental product declaration for hot mix asphalt and concrete. And what you see on the screen is a snapshot of the entire spec language. It is relatively short, and I am going to highlight some important aspects of the spec, and I highly encourage you to get a copy of the spec from the link you can see on the top left corner. Next, please. So the first question is, what are the project thresholds or requirements for projects that are needed to that have to submit the EPD for? Before I answer that question, let me please note and remember that at this stage, we collect EPDs as only informational submittal. There is no GWP limits at this stage for asphalt and concrete. There is no good or bad EPDs. This is only informational submittals. Now, going back to the question for project thresholds, the spec says for projects with bid opening dates after February 1st, 2025, with a total bid over 1 million and 175 or more original working days, EPDs are required. Besides that, there are two quantity thresholds. One for asphalt, and basically for each hot mix asphalt plant providing 2250 ton or more to the project by job mix formula. And on the concrete side, for each plant providing 250 cubic yards or more to the projects by mix design, then the EPDs will be required. So as you can see, if you go back, as you can see in the previous slide, basically we have tried to, we are not asking smaller projects to submit EPDs at this stage. Next, please. So in terms of EPD requirements specifically to the EPDs, if you go to section 6-1.06b, there is a list of technical terms and definitions. And obviously, the first one is environmental product declarations. So in terms of requirement, we ask for facility specific. And basically, that means if a supplier or company have multiple facility, and facility A, let's say, providing or supplying materials to the projects, we want EPDs from that specific facility A for that project. So keep that in mind. Also, EPDs must be include product stage, and product stage means A1, A2, A3, cradle to gate, as Dominica and Ignacio talked about. They have to be independently verified by third-party verifiers, and at the time suppliers and contractors submit their EPDs, there should be a valid or not expired product category rules or PCR available for that material. Next slide, please. So there are some materials and situations or conditions that EPD are not required, or we are not asking for EPDs. And for materials, on the hot mix asphalt side, rubberized hot mix asphalt, open graded friction course, and bonded wearing course. And on the concrete side, volumetric proportioned rapid strength concrete and precast concrete members are excluded from this round of EPD data collection. Seasonal plants operating fewer than 6 months per year are not required. And also for informal bid contracts, we do not ask for EPDs. Next, please. In terms of submittal requirements, in the next section of the presentation, Mike and Ignacio will talk about in details of how to submit your EPDs into the database. Just some highlights here I'm going to talk about. First, you need to register into DIME to be able to get access to EPD database. And if you already have a DIME account, you should be good to go. Contractors need to submit EPDs within 30 days of initial placement. And during the submittal, the intended use breakdown for A1, A2, A3. And just as a reminder, A1 is raw material extraction, A2 is transportation, and A3 is mixing. We need that breakdown when you submit your EPDs. And in terms of estimated quantity, you can get it from bid item or purchase order quantities. Next slide. So there will be a question, okay, what if a contractor or supplier cannot publish and provide an EPD for asphalt or concrete in a specific project? So there will be a $6,000 withhold for each missing declaration. But remember, there is an opportunity to return that withhold if you can submit your EPDs before contract acceptance. In other words, the withhold becomes permanent after contract acceptance. If you submit your EPDs before contract acceptance, the withhold will be returned. Next slide. Okay, that's kind of the high-level overview of the new spec we developed for asphalt and concrete. We've frequently get that question, what are the differences between Buy Clean California Act, BCCA, and this new EPD spec? Obviously, BCCA covers and addresses specific materials, as you can see on the screen on the left portion of this nice table. And the new spec address and focus on hot mix asphalt and concrete. There are two major differences here. As Dominica mentioned, in BCCA, there are existing GWP limits. And if a supplier cannot meet those limits, they cannot install those products on a Caltrans project. But for asphalt and concrete, remember, there is no GWP limit. There is no good or bad EPDs. We just collect EPDs as informational submittal. Also, as I explained in the previous slide, there will be $6,000 withhold for each missing EPDs, but on the BCCA, there is no withhold. Either you meet the GWP requirements, or if you don't, per standard contract, you cannot install it. So those are the two major differences between BCCA and the new spec. Next slide, please. Here I'm going to touch a little bit on FHWA climate challenge. And I believe you have heard about that. So we understand, as Mike and Ignacio explained, publishing and getting EPD might be challenging and require some sort of an investment. That's for that reason, we Caltrans participated in 2022 in FHWA Climate Challenge. And as part of that program, Caltrans can reimburse concrete and asphalt plants if they do that exercise and go through that effort to publish and submit their EPDs. It's a partial incentive-based program, which means we reimburse $4,500 per EPD per plant, up to $18,000 per company. Basically means 4 EPDs per company. And remember, this program will expire on January 2026. If you are in the process, or if you went through that process and already got your EPDs, please make sure, and if you haven't participated yet, please make sure you participate in this program and make use of this reimbursement. And as you can see in that map below, the left one shows basically we pinned the locations that we received the EPDs from the suppliers who participated in this program. And the map in the middle shows where we anticipate more participation. As you can see, there are northern part of the state, District 1 and 2, and in the middle, the 5, 6, 9, and District 11, San Diego area. So we have not seen participation in this program. And if you are in the audience, please make sure you go to that website. And if you have any questions, we are here to help you. So to be able to get your EPDs and submit it to this program. So with that, next slide, please. I'm gonna give it back to Mike and Ignacio, and they're gonna walk you through the EPD database process to submit your EPDs. Mike?
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so let's let this stay up for a little bit. These 2 web addresses will be needed for you to input your EPDs into the Caltrans database. The first one is from DIME. You need to create a DIME account, as was said before, on dime.dot.ca.gov. Then use those credentials to log on to the EPD database at the second address, epd.dot.ca.gov. Next slide. Okay, how to submit a new asphalt EPD. It's very, very easy. At any point, you can go ahead and click on the help and support button, highlighted with that green arrow pointing to it. And from the drop down, it'll take you through anything that you're going to need. It's a very comprehensive guide, more comprehensive than the one you're going to get here in the next couple minutes, I can tell you that. So this is the first page that you'll see. Next slide. Click where it says, click here to submit a new EPD. highlighted by the arrow. It's important to know, I need to make sure I tell everyone this, that the supplier or the contractor can enter an EPD into the system, but the supplier really should be the one to do it because it's your product, it's your EPD. You know where everything is or should be that's located on that EPD for inputting into the system. Next slide. This is an easy one. Choose asphalt when it says create what kind of EPD. Next slide. So what they want you to do here is just a little snippet of what kind of data they're going to be asking you for. Fill in all the areas with the information. All this stuff that you see here to the right is located on page 1 of your EPD. Next slide. At the bottom of that first page is the PCR information. You're supposed to click on the one that's relevant to your EPD. We'll see on the next slide where that's located. But this is also on page 1 of the EPD at the bottom of the page. Next slide. So you got the company information as we saw, the product description as we saw before in the middle, and at the bottom is the area where the PCR information is held. Next slide. So we've talked about page 1 of your EPD. We've also talked about page 3 earlier. Page 5 of your EPD is the other very important spot, and that's where it tells you what your, not only what your total GWP is, but where that number is coming from. So the database wants you to fill in on page 5 of your EPD is where you'll find this, the individual GWP numbers. And it's going to be asking you for metric. So make sure everything that you input is in metric. It'll ask you for the A1, the A2, and the A3 numbers. It'll calc that for you in the gray box that says total, and tell you that it's in the unit that's required, kilograms per CO2 equivalents. All you have to do at that point is convert your EPD to a PDF and then upload that PDF into the database and click continue. Next slide. So this is the page 5 I was talking about. At the top of page 5 of your EPD, that's where you'll find the data for the A1, the A2, and the A3, which is circled here. Needed to calculate that GWP. After you've put those individuals in and uploaded the EPD itself, you've done it. The EPD is done and it's entered. However, next slide. If for whatever reason you make a mistake, after you press enter, the database will alert you by email relatively shortly that either it's been accepted or that there was a mistake. It actually highlights in red, as you see here, what was not correct. This is an actual snippet from my first or second EPD. I got the declaration number wrong or the valid date. All you have to do is go back in to the database, fix it, and resubmit. And then within a short amount of time after that, you should get the accepted email. At that point, your EPD is in the system, ready to be linked by its mix ID to a project that uses that mix. Next slide. So this is mainly for the contractors, finding the EPD to submit the project information on. The black arrow here shows the category, excuse me, before the black arrow, there's a couple tabs up top that say concrete, asphalt concrete, CMU or steel. Click asphalt concrete, enter in the mix ID number in the box under mix ID, which is located below the black arrow. Once you start putting that information in, it'll bring up the EPD that is linked with that. And to the right, underneath the green arrow will be a submit project information link. Click that and it will take you to the next screen, which is filling in the project information. All you really need here is the project name, intended use of the material, and the quantity, which must be in short tons. The quantity unit should be shown there to remind you. If the project is not listed, there's a link to contact a METS representative, and that is literally it. Next slide. But I need to make sure that everybody knows that the EPDs must be in the system before the contractor can input any of his project information. Otherwise, you're looking for an EPD for a mix through the mix ID number, and the system can't bring it up because it's not in yet. So the suppliers or whoever inputs the EPDs into the system must do that prior to the contractor being able to enter in his information. And now inputting concrete EPDs.
Thanks, Mike. So now I will give you a walkthrough of how to upload a concrete EPD. We want to say it's very similar to what Mike just walked us through on the asphalt side, but we'll try to highlight a couple different things. So first, you will need your DIME credentials. If you already have DIME credentials, this process is fairly easy. You just type in your credentials and it will direct you to your dashboard. On the dashboard, once you log in, it will list all the EPDs that are currently uploaded to the Caltrans database. You can also filter the EPDs by the material. So right now we're under concrete, but you also have asphalt, CMU, and steel. You'll have two locations where you'll be able to upload or click to add a new EPD. On the header, it says add new EPD, or in the body, it says click here to submit a new EPD. Before we get started on uploading an EPD, I do want to highly suggest that on the header, there's a help and support button or drop down, and there under it, there's a database guide that I highly encourage you to bookmark and share with your team members who will be doing this process of uploading an EPD. You'll have access to this same steps that Mike and I are walking you through for asphalt and concrete. And Caltrans staff will ensure that all the links that we go over today will be shared with you in a handy little sheet for you to be able to click on and have handy. So let's get started uploading your concrete EPD. So we'll select concrete under material. You'll need the EPD that you generated from earlier to start extracting information. So the first ask is your EPD declaration number. For our EPD, starts off with NRMCA EPD 2068. Your company name, Holliday Rock. Your valid date from, and your valid date to. And then you will check the box to verify that this EPD is independently verified in accordance with iOS 14025. Once you've gone through that information, you move on to the material type information. This section is asking for plant information. So your plant name and your address for the plant. The mix name and code. For this EPD, we have 3F36L006. And then the strength and age of maturity. So 3625 for strength, and your age of maturity for this EPD is 28 days. Once you have uploaded your material, the next section is your PCR for concrete. And we have a subcategory PCR, NSF International, and all you have to do is verify that the EPD has that information, and you just click on the bubble to indicate that it conforms with your PCR. The next section is the global warming potential, or GWP. We want to highly encourage you to ensure that your team understands what units of measurements you're inputting. So Caltrans in this section is asking for meters. EPDs can be in meters or yards. For our EPD, we have conformed it to meters. So ensure that the values are correct. So let's get started. So our A1 module is 268.48. Our A2 module is 8.66. And as you can tell, as you're inputting your values, the total on the web browser is being updated. So currently 277.14. And the A3 module is 6.14, which gives us a grand total of 283.28. And this number matches with your EPD GWP value. Once you have typed in your values, the system will ask you to upload your EPD. Caltrans asks you to please upload a PDF format of your EPD to ensure that it is accessible for them. Once you have uploaded your EPD, it will give you a screen to ensure that you review all the information that you have inputted. Then if everything looks great, you will click submit. It will ask you one more time, are you sure you want to submit your EPD? And you click yes or submit. And then it will direct you back to the dashboard where it will show you the EPD that you just submitted. It will show as pending. As Mike mentioned, if there's any errors or any revisions that need to take care of, you'll get an email stating that your EPD needs to be reviewed or revised. If your EPD gets approved, then you will get an email saying that it's active, and you'll log in back to your dashboard and you'll see your EPD says under EPD status active. And at this point, the contractor can come in and submit project information. So let's take a look what the contractor will have to will see and type in. So first, they will get to see all the information that is relevant to that particular EPD, ensuring that they are connecting the EPD with the project for that particular project. Then they will move on to the EPD submittal information, where they will select their project. Here's a test project. So once they select the project, it will give them project number, descriptions for that particular project. It will also give them the contact information for that project, any relevant information. And then it will allow them to start inputting quantities for that project. So they will select the intended use of material. Caltrans has listed out all the different sections that the contractor will be able to submit project information on. We want to highlight that this quantity unit is measured in yards. So ensure that your team understands that this particular unit of measurement or the contractor's team is uploading yards as their quantity. Once they have uploaded their quantities, they're able to add additional comments, and then they click save, and then that concludes what the contractor needs to do for uploading information. Next, we'll pass it on to Hadi for some takeaways.
All right, thank you, Ignacio. I think I'm going to wrap up here in this webinar and presentation with a few takeaways. We talk about what are EPDs, why Caltrans is interested in collecting EPDs, how to publish and develop EPDs for asphalt and concrete, what is our new spec, and what are the requirements in the spec. And you can see some of them on the screen, 30 days requirements and breakdown for A1, A2, A3, quantity submittals and the process on how to submit this information into our EPD database. Also, again, I'm going to repeat myself and encourage you to participate in the FHWA Climate Challenge if you haven't participated yet. With that, I'm going to, next slide, please. I'm going to show you a couple of additional resources and standards you can find more information. The first one is ISO 14025. There is a NAPA EPD tool link there you can see, and the PCR product category rules for asphalt mixtures. And also in the next slide, you see links to PCR for concrete and CMUs. With that, next slide, please. We are going to the Q&A session, but next. As part of Q&A sessions, we developed a list of FAQs that we expect and we hope that answer most of your questions. And I'm going to very quickly read through before we open it to the audience to ask their questions. And I saw couple of questions in the chat as well. The first question is, are EPDs for hot mix asphalt and concrete part of BCCA? And the answer, no. BCCA applies to reinforcement and structural steel to ensure that materials do not exceed the maximum allowed GWP values set by Department of General Services, DGS. For hot mix asphalt and concrete, EPDs are only required for data collection purpose and are not subject to GWP limits at this time. Keep that in mind. No GWP limits for asphalt and concrete at this time. Who is responsible for uploading EPDs and project quantity information? Caltrans contract with the prime contractor. The prime contractor may elect to delegate EPD and quantity submission responsibility to the supplier. The EPD website allows either party to create an account and submit information. Next question is, if a project spans 3 years and EPD expires in year 2, can EPD valid at the project start be submitted for job completion? And the answer to that question is EPD must be valid at the time of project quantity submission, whether it is at the start, middle, or end of the project. Next slide, please. And before I go through the other two questions, you can get this list of FAQs from the link at the bottom of this slide, or if you go to the EPD webpage under Help and Support, you will see a link to this FAQs. How often should quantity information be submitted? Monthly, quarterly, or at the end of the project? We ask for one-time submission, either based on the purchase order or after delivering the final quantity. So it's an acceptance frequency for Caltrans. And the last question is, how should discrepancies between ordered and delivered quantity be handled in submission? Should quantity field reflect actual delivered amount or estimated values? And the answer would be the submission should reflect the actual delivered quantity. A one-time submission after final delivery is expected reporting method. Clarification can be provided in the comments to ensure clarity. With that, thank you, everyone. And I'm going to hand it back to Jinesh and answering your questions and the question from the audience. Thank you.
Thanks, Hadi, and thank you all the panel members for a very informative session. Appreciate the detailed overview of the new specification and requirements and how everyone can achieve. As we highlighted earlier, the goal is we want to keep this as interactive as possible. We have some questions here. We'll answer those. Feel free to add more questions. Once we answer this, if you still have questions and if you can't type, if you want to unmute your microphone and ask questions, you can do those as well. So let me start with the question that we have from Paul and John. Our similar question on the same topic. It's about portable batch plants and versus seasonal plants and what the requirements are. As Hadi highlighted, the seasonal plant that operate less than 6 months are not required to submit EPDs. We did have quite a bit of discussion in this topic during the working group, and actually since the PCR product category rule does allow for portable plants to generate EPD, both Caltrans and industry agreed to not exempt portable plant from EPD requirement. And so if it's just a portable plant that does operate more than 6 months out of year, EPD will be required. If it's a portable plant that operates less than 6 months, then you can call or classify that plant as a seasonal plant. Per Caltrans specification, the EPD will not be required for seasonal plant. Hadi, do you want to add anything there and clarify anything further?
No, that's basically that's the answer. And thanks for the clarification. And thanks for asking that question. One thing I just want to add is if you have a seasonal plants, if a portable batch plant in this example, but you have EPDs, you went through that exercise and published your EPDs, it doesn't mean we don't like your EPDs. We highly encourage you to please submit, because that helps us to collect more and more data. And when we, in the next year or so, when we looking at this data, that can help us with our benchmarking efforts for future. So again, if you have EPD, if you developed your EPDs, I would highly encourage you to submit your EPDs. Thank you.
Thanks, Hadi. So we can go to the next question from James about who verifies EPD info is accurate. Dominica, you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. So for every EPD, we have requirements for a third-party verifier. So that third-party verification, at least with a lot of the tools that are available right now to develop these EPDs, it's already incorporated into their system. And then a lot of these softwares that are available have, I don't recall if it was Mike or Ignacio that mentioned it, but they have incorporated into the system where it looks for where someone might have fat fingered, numbers, and it has you re-input it. So every EPD is required to have a third-party verification, and you'll see that on all of the EPDs that are out there right now.
I think the question here, Dominica, is once they submit, who from Caltrans verifies Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Well, in
so-
that case, we actually have humans that look at the PDF that you submit along with what you input into the database, and they do their quality checks. And so that email that Mike mentioned that gets sent out, that's as a result of one of our staff members looking through what the PDF shows versus what was input as a double check.
So that's the statewide material support branch within METS is the one that does that verification of data. Right. Okay. So that was the, I think that's what they were looking for, who
Okay.
from Caltrans is checking it.
Different
So I think,
verification. Got it.
yeah. So the next thing was somebody wanted the link for the specification in the chat, so I just posted that. Let me see what is the other questions we have. Okay. Oh, there is a lot here, so let me make sure I go in the right order. Okay, based on my understanding from this presentation, EPDs are currently required only for dense grade HMA mix produced at asphalt plant unless the plant is classified as seasonal, in which cases it appears to be exempt. Can you confirm whether contractors or asphalt binder refineries are also exempt from submitting EPD at this stage? Additionally, could you provide a list of few approved third-party verifiers for EPDs? Okay, so this is a long one, so I'll take a stab, and then maybe Dominica, Hadi, or Mike, if you guys want to chime in here. So yes, it's type A HMA is where the EPDs are required. We don't require it for rubberized asphalt, as you can see here. Exclude RHMA, OGFC, and BWC material. Again, the EPDs are done by the hot mix asphalt plant, and so they will be getting the data from refineries or other places for raw material they procure. And so the responsibility of developing EPD is on the plant that's producing the type A HMA mix. And so again, from Caltrans perspective, it's a mix specific EPD. When we get the JMF for project approval for that particular JMF, we would expect a EPD generated by that particular plant if the threshold for type A HMA is over 20 to 50 ton for that particular project. And so that's the requirement. And if it's not coming from a seasonal plant that only operates for less than that only operates less than 6 months. And so so that's the part about contractors or asphalt binder refineries are also exempt from submitting EPD at this stage. The part is it's not, we're not going to ask from prime or from the refineries to submit their own EPD. Their refinery data will go to the plant that's using that binder material, and that's the plant itself will have all that information as part of their raw data in A1 stage, and then they'll generate the EPD. And then the second part was list of few approved third-party verifiers for EPDs. So again, Phillips, if you can go to that slide that had those three, I think it's in Ignacio's slide, that has the asphalt and concrete LCA groups that do the third-party verification. So while Phillips go there, Mike or Dominica, you guys want to add anything to that?
I don't think I have anything else to add from my end. I think you did a great job answering that.
Yeah, this is Hadi. To the first part of that question, as you explained very clearly, so with respect to binder refinery information, that's basically part of the A1 Remember when we were talking about A1, A2, A3, A1 is the raw material extraction. So eventually for a hot mix asphalt producer to put together and publish an EPD, they need those information to get the A1 information from the binder suppliers. So that's one thing I wanted to add. And yeah.
So as far as the asphalt EPDs go, Emerald Eco Label through Napa, their site may contain some regional averages or national averages for GWPs for some of the materials that you may use at your plant. Your job is to make sure you identify where you're getting the binder from, the distance that it takes you to get that material to your plant, how it's getting there, whether it's by boat, barge, rail, and the calculation, the formula inside that tool will do the rest. There is an opportunity for additive producers to do EPDs on their individual additives. And then when they download that information to Napa and the Emerald Eco Label tool, it will mention them by name in the drop down. So that would be a more specific and accurate GWP that you're going to be using in your mix EPD. But I don't think anybody is required as far as additive producers or binder producers at this point anyway, to input a specific number. They will use regional or national averages if they have to.
Thanks, Mike. And here are the list of the third-party verifiers that we discussed before as well. So going to the next question, if I understand the last portion of the presentation correctly, the expectation was to submit one document once deliveries were done and final quantities are known. This seems to contradict the spec language calling the submittal 30 days prior to placing material. Can this be clarified a bit? So the spec language is actually within 30 days of placement. So let me read off the spec language. So I think that we can clarify that confusion. It says, within 30 days of initial placement of each applicable material or product, submit a facility-specific product stage environmental product declaration informational submittal to DIME. And so it's within 30 days of placement. It's not prior to. And so the goal is once you submit that material, that particular mix, whatever 280 cubic yard over 10 days or something, you basically submit your EPD quantities within 30 days. And ideally, the goal is as you're submitting your monthly invoices and stuff for those quantities, you can say, okay, this is the quantity you supplied. You do one-time entry for that quantity on the EPD system. And so, yes, we're not expecting to put that in advance. We are expecting to have as close to realistic quantity being supplied for the project. It's really to be able to, for us to understand what type of GWP we have in terms of the weighted averages for us in terms of amount of material being used versus what is the GWP for that particular material. Does anybody want to add anything more to that? Okay, not. All right. The next question is, any estimate on when the concrete and asphalt EBT submitted are scheduled to become an Excel submittal instead of informational? Guess I can say the PMPC scoping document goes up to end of this year. And one of the milestone is to have a final report, as Dominica highlighted, do a final report that will lay out the roadmap for how Caltrans plans to implement this based on industry input. And so as Dominica highlighted, the data will be collected through this construction season. And the working group, 8 members, will review the data, see how much data we have, what kind of information we have, what kind of gaps we have, and then based on that 8 members' recommendation, they will lay out the next steps or plan on when that requirement will become an action submittal or any kind of benchmarking will be done. Will be, again, the opportunity with this specification is it's unlike Bike Lane, California. It's not legislated, and so it allows Caltrans to collaborate with industry, stay with the strategic goal of partnering with industry while reducing the carbon footprint. And so it will be more of a collaborative discussion to figure out what is that appropriate time. Panel members, anything to add there?
This is Hadi again. But yeah, just want to emphasize what you said. Any future steps in terms of benchmarking and looking at the data gaps, and if we move toward making it action instead of informational, would be through PMPC, Pavement and Materials Partnering Committee. It would be a collaborative effort between Caltrans and industry to look at the data gaps, to set the benchmarking, and also the any GWP limits if we go that route. So just want to emphasize it's going to be another PMPC working group will be working on the next steps.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't see any more questions here. We can open it up for the audience. If you guys want to unmute your mic and ask any questions or put anything more in the chat. We still have about 10 minutes or so. The goal, we wanted to leave a little bit more time for Q&A because we really make sure we can answer any question that comes through this. So again, no questions are stupid questions. You can ask any question you have. I'm sure if you're thinking about it, someone else is thinking about it too. So feel free to ask any question you have. Right. Sounds like you guys, the panel, did a great job of covering this material. So if we're not getting any more questions here, so that's a good sign. Again, if you are producers, the biggest takeaway is submit your EPDs. If you have EPDs, go into DIME, submit it. It's going to be making your job easier and contractors and everybody else's job easier as the project picks up and stuff, and take advantage of climate challenge. It's money you're getting reimbursed for, and again, it's going to help Caltrans look at the data in realistic fashion in terms of how different regions within California are doing and how we can move forward. So, oh, looks like we got one more question here. Okay. Going back to reporting quantity, most projects go long past the 30-day mark. How do we handle reporting quantities on projects that extend for months or years? I think we do have FAQ on that. Phillips, what is, I don't know if we have a published answer, if you want to pull it up real quick. should discrepancy between ordered, okay, this one doesn't, how often, well, one-time submission either based on purchase order or after delivery, the final quantity is an acceptable frequency. So again, the one way you can tackle this is within 30 days, you can put your best estimate of what you will end up providing based on your purchase order. And so if, again, we're not expecting you to go back every month. The goal is to get as realistic number as possible. Also, at times you can update a monthly number and then go back and revise the number if you prefer that way, or you can work with your project team to say, hey, this one is going longer. Is it okay if I submit it towards the end? And I'm sure your RE and Maths rep would be understanding that that is an appropriate way to handle it. So the goal is not to. Oh yeah, go ahead, Dominica.
No. Finish your thought. Sorry.
No, our goal is not to create a lot of extra work for people. It's just to make sure we have the realistic number for that particular EPD.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add to what Janesh mentioned, so one of our, and a lot to do with that 30 days, is we want to make sure that there's an EPD that is associated with that material that is going to be out there. So that's kind of the quantities, right? We can, we're a little bit, if it's based off the purchase order or a final quantity, where, as long as it's your best guess, then that's good. We just really want to make sure that the EPD itself exists for that material, because some EPDs, depending on if it's a new plant that hasn't developed any EPDs, it might take a while to develop it. And so that's kind of like the number one. The quantities are relatively easy to input, but an EPD, if it hasn't been developed, it could potentially run into issues if it's a new plant that's never developed an EPD before, because it does take time. You need data to do all of those things. So I think as everybody's going down this path, that's like the first focus areas to make sure that there's an EPD for the material that you're looking to place for that mixed design.
And just to add to that, means if RE and Caltrans won't see any EPD for that particular mix submitted 30 days after, then that performance withhold, they can potentially enact in your first invoice when you submit the invoice for that material to say, okay, we're going to hold off $6,000 until we get the EPD. And so that's where the 30 days kind of put in to make sure we have the EPD for sure within the 30 days. And if the quantities are available, great. If not, that can be added one time or later on. So. Okay. Any other question? Oh, I see one more.
Mihai has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Mihai.
So I was thinking, as Maths reps, what is your best recommendation for us, besides bringing this up in pre-con meetings, making sure they are aware of it, which sometimes we get invites for pre-con meetings, sometimes we don't, or many times we don't. How should we
this training? Yeah, no, this training is kind of open to a lot of district staff. We have here DMEs, we have the staff that actually support REs as assistant REs. And so again, it's a new specification, so it will be all hands on deck. Maths will be highlighting requirement from their side in pre-con, but with the CPD out there, the construction staff are also looking at this and looking at that, okay, they need to follow this new requirement. And so I'm sure everybody will work together in making sure that the people providing materials are aware of this requirement and they can follow along, and whatever Maths can do in terms of pre-con meeting or any outreaches, this has been definitely discussed in the RE Academy, in the structure construction winter training. And so again, this new specification will continue to require more and more outreach, and we'll continue to do that with every available forum. So anything else anyone wants to add?
Hey, Jenny, this is Raghu from Division of Construction, Caltrans. Yeah,
Mhm.
as you said, we have issued a CPD for informing all the REs of this specification, and also there was a question like I'm not sure the question asked by he's a supplier or even I'm not sure who is he, but end of the day, this is the prime contractor is responsible for it, this part of the contract. So RE will definitely work with the prime, but however, this information can be submitted by the supplier or the plant. But yeah, the responsibility is the prime contractors.
Thanks, Raghu. Appreciate it. Any other questions from anyone? Yes, Brandon.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good presentation. Nice overview. What when you're looking at submission of EPDs, is that tied to the submission of the job mix formula, or is that tied to the bid item? So, in other words, if during the process of as the contractor goes through the project and changes the job mix formula, is a new EPD required to be submitted?
Yes, as we highlighted, and maybe we go to the spec, it's a mix specific EPD. And so it is tied to a particular job mix formula. So if for that JMF you have 20 to 50 tons or higher of material that you're supplying for that project, then the EPD will be required. Now, if you change job mix formula and you only replacing 200 ton of that material, you don't necessarily need to do another EPD. But right now, the EPD requirement is tied to the particular job mix formula for that tonnage requirement.
Yeah, so as a follow-up on that, that would mean that that's where you would have to tie the tonnage that is placed under one job mix formula and make sure for in your quantities that you've identified those.
Yep.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
And as you saw from Mike, if you can go to Mike's slide, I think that kind of shows that, as we were highlighting, that the first step is all plants submit your EPDs. Go do it right now. Get your dime accounts, submit your EPDs. You don't need a project number. You don't need anything. If you have EPD, go ahead and submit it on Caltrans system, because that will be the first step. And then when you have a project, you just go select that EPD and update the quantities. If there is no EPD submitted, contractor or supplier will not be able to submit the quantities because it is tied to a particular job mix formula number, particular mix. Any other questions from anyone? We're right at time here, so really appreciate everyone's participation. This was a great session. Appreciate all the panel members for really giving a detailed description, and we'll be sending out the handout as discussed with all the useful links. Any other parting words from anyone?
No, just thank you everyone that joined us and for participating and for the folks that asked questions. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.